Welcome back, folks. I'm back in my sort of test bed area here. So I'm going to start building my PCG asset. So how do I get going? Well, what I can do is I can right click and create a blueprint actor. From here, just a blueprint class, and that's an actor. And it will load up a sort of empty looking like this. All I've added to this at the moment is a PCG. So just a PCG from here. Just added that as a PCG. I've got a PCG building. And what I've added to that is just an empty PCG graph. PCG building underscore VT. We've got that in our PCG folder here. PCG building underscore VT. Just drag that into my asset there. The other thing I need my level. So my building level instance version 6 is the one with all of my tags and all of my reference geometry as well. And you right click on this asset actions and create PCG assets from level, and it will create a PCG asset. We can replace the one that we've got here, and we're going to use that. So what I'll do is I'll load up my PCG building VT, and I'll get my data assets that are here. And I've kept this separately so I can keep myself organized. I've got that here, and I'm just going to drag it into here, and there it is. Appears, and this is an empty PCG. You can see there's nothing in there as a template already. And what we should be able to do is we should be able to start to get this data and start to bring these together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just grab my VT blueprint, pop it in the world. This should be all ready to go. And we want to be able to start to sort of extract the data out of this and start to sort of plug things together. Now what we can also do is we can also go and get some of the actor properties. So we can go get actor property, and we can start to extract some of the properties out of our PCG elements from here as well. So what we can do with this is we can say we want to reference the original geometry that's here, and we're going to call this PCG building, and that's going to be my PCG building here. I can plug this in as an asset here like this, and at the minute it's going to give me an error and sort of say there's I'm not really sort of ready to deal with that, but we just need to add a couple more components to sort of start to sort of extract the information out of this sort of level instance and assets as well before we get too far ahead. So what I need from there now is I need to copy the points out of this. So I'm going to go copy points, and I'm going to have 2 of these. Now what I should be able to do out of here, why is this error? Let's see what's going on here. There's not a child class. Oh, have I not included the children? There we go. Include children. There we go. Something very silly sometimes catches you out. And so what we can do with these assets now is we can start to bring out some of the elements from our PCG data assets to start to work with it. So you can see at the minute I've got the PCG data asset here, and as you can see that's loaded in sort of a bounding box of my assets here, and here as well is the geometry data for all of the assets that are in here. Now what I can also start to do with this as well is to bring in things like the actor data and sort of figure out sort of where things are. So if I just go and get actor data, I can make sure that this is going to sort of reference its appropriate elements in the world, and sort of understand really where's my asset in relation to the level. So we'll plug these in as well. And oh, we've missed something here. Let me just go and check. I want points in here. Get single point. There we go. And that should allow me to plug those in as well. You can see these become enabled now because I've got a source and a target. And what you can do then is you can use A on your keyboard to then look at the point. So you can see here, this sort of outputs a sort of a bounding box for my extents of my world. But in this one, what it does is it will output, if I see that, it will output all of the individual point data for all of the assets in the world. And you can see there's quite an extensive amount of points. And even that cube there representing, because it's a debug, representing the lights that we had before. And you can see all of my tags that I created. I've got the individual elements for bounds and materials and meshes and scales and pitch and all those sorts of things. And there's also all those tags and true or false representing the tags that we added, which is all really cool. Now, it all sounds like, okay, well, that's cool, but I can't really do anything with it. Well, let's static mesh spawn out our assets. So if I go and do it by attribute, and the attribute I want to spawn is mesh, then what we should actually get in the world now with our blueprint, there we are, is the meshes that are spawned. Notice it's spawned all of the meshes, including our debug, our data geometry as well for those decals, which isn't great because we're going to have to hide those. But I'm up at the, off at bat, as it were, and this is sort of ready for us to start to sort of filter through and get sort of stuck into, really, because all of the data is coming out of these point nodes over here, which is great. Now, as we go through this, we want to start being able to attach various different properties to our assets and filters to go along with that. So we'll start with something very straightforward, and then we'll get perhaps into something a little bit more complicated pretty quick. So I don't want my static mesh spawner straight away, so I'm going to sort of extract that out. And what I'll do is I'll try and keep an eye on things that I can see. Maybe I'll just leave this down here, but maybe we can swap it out as a sort of as we go. But the debug is what we really want to be able to see in terms of what's here and what's not. Let's start with that perhaps initial filter attributes elements. And what we want to be able to filter initially is we want to filter initially by whether we're getting the attribute DL interior. So this is going to basically turn off whether this meshes are spawned as an interior or an exterior the minute it's spawning everything. We do want it to be a constant threshold, and we do want it to be a boolean, and essentially we want this boolean to be true. So if the filter is true, then do a thing. If it's false, do something else. Now, where this starts to get sort of interesting is that we want to actually reference against a property or a branch. We don't just want to filter out sort of on or off here. So if we were to move our static mesh spawner, then you can kind of see what we can sort of spawn out of these things. So again, everything that's inside the property there is everything with a filter for the interior values, and everything outside is this. So obviously if we keep this on, then this is the exterior elements. Okay, all well and good, but we want to be able to compare this against a blueprint and have some variables in our blueprint. If we've got our blueprint selected in the world over here, then we want to be able to edit and control the functionality of that. So how do we do that? Well, what we do is we add some variables into our blueprint over here, and we can just start to add variables down here. So we can add a variable, and we can call this interior. I can call this a public variable. It's a boolean. I can even put this into a category, call this interior, because that way anything related to my interior filters can be inside of that. I can add a description if I wanted to. I will need to compile it, and I will need to say what the default value is. In this case, the default value can be true. But what I can do with this now is I can come back in and I can start to, interestingly, that did I not select it? There we go. There we go. Okay. What I can do now is bring that property in. And so the way I do that is I essentially work with the actor properties again to go filter. I want to go get actor property, and this now is going to be it's the self, and it's going to be the property of interior. There we go. And so that is going to be the initial property that we're actually sort of working with. So let's have a look at this. That's the property of our blueprint over here. And what we'll do is we'll say inside the filter we want a branch. There we go. And so what we'll do is in that branch we'll have an output to be. we are. And then what we can do is we can bring this out and we can pop this into here like so. So what we can do now with this ready to go, we should have our interior here. You can see it's turned on. And if we turn that off, that disappears. Yeah, all of the stuff inside, no stuff at all. Fantastic. What a great start to our PCG system with some custom filters here. Now, where this gets really interesting is how we start to manipulate additional levels of control. And this is where we're going to start to create a drop-down menu within our blueprint to create variable controls for those variables, interior variables of 1, 2, 3, right? And we'll do that in our next video.